אותנו מוחרם בעצמו. בשנים האחרונות קידמנו בארצות הברית, ויש כבר ברוב המדינות שם, חוקים שמי שאומרים את ישראל נענש בעצמו. אז זה לא יעזור להם, אנחנו לא מתרגשים מזה, ואנחנו נלחמים בזה.
Minneapolis, please keep an eye out for this man who...
So, this is a story about a protest in support for Palestinian liberation in Minneapolis. About a story about a man who drove his car through the crowd of protesters and then got out of his vehicle and proceeded to pull a weapon on the people that he just attempted to run over. And it reminds me a lot of a couple years ago, back when the Block the Boat protests were happening, which was also a protest against apartheid Israel, essentially tied in with the BDS movement, where there was this massive ship that Israel relied on for exports, and essentially all up the West Coast, Israeli apartheid protesters in response to the 75 years of genocide of Palestinian people were blocking the boat access at ports and working with dock workers to try and make sure that they were not able to unload their exports, and essentially costing Israel money, hitting them where it hurts. And there was this it was a days-long protest once the boat had reached Seattle, which was one of its final stops. These protests have been going on all along the coast, and dock workers were working with the protesters. The union was working with the protesters and with the local Palestinian liberation groups we have here in Seattle. And Israel did end up pulling some strings, and despite a few successful days of holding the boat up, the dock workers, the union members who were in solidarity with us, were overruled. But overall it was considered a success for what it was. But there was a security guard. Now mind you, we're the protesters protesting peacefully, having plenty of productive conversations with the dock workers who were almost entirely in support of us, but this fucking security guard had pulled up and was sitting in the car while picketers, and picketers, a big group of protesters, is peacefully standing chanting outside the entrance to the dock. And this woman just, I don't know, like maybe she woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but she fucking, after sitting there and honking, slams on her gas and drives into the fucking crowd. And at that point, people scatter, people are panicking. She ended up stopping kind of in the middle of this group. Luckily, she didn't end up running anyone over, but she tried to drive through the crowd. People were panicking, but stood strong. And, her window got busted, and it's just like, she could have, chilled out in her car, relaxed a little bit, could have appreciated this day off, stood in solidarity with the dock workers and with the Palestinian people, and just had a relaxing day, but instead chose to angrily and violently drive into a fucking group of people peacefully protesting. And her window got busted out for it, and I remember a coffee being spilled all over her car, and I'm sure that sucked to clean up. But really, I guess what I'm saying is this type of shit, and it's not only Palestinian liberation protests and movements in the United States, but for some reason it brings out the fucking worst in people, be it from the fascist Zionists or from angry security guards and angry old men that can't take an alternate route and refuse to stop and listen to what people have to say and why they're using civil disobedience. And it's just pathetic, and it's sad, and they can continue to act out in violent ways, but the people will still stand strong. So, I guess, yeah, stop trying to run people over. These fucking psychopaths.
Let it be written in the historical record that Israel butchered Gaza over and over as the civilized West supplied the weapons and shielded Israel in the press. The bullies pretended to be victims, the settlers pretended to be civilians, the oppressors pretended to be the oppressed. In barely 2 weeks, almost 5,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel, half of them women and children. Who even knows what the other half are? Show me one dead Hamas fighter, one. Israel has destroyed 140,000 homes in Gaza. Are you going to come here and tell me that Hamas owns 140,000 homes in Gaza, 1/3 of all the houses? What about the 19 journalists? What about the 29 UN workers? What about the 37 medics killed by Israel, all of them? Even hospitals, historical churches are not safe. How can he who claimed to be sane of mind gaze upon this madness, this folly, and find it proportionate and humane? I cannot even count the number of videos and photos I've seen of dead people in Gaza. It's sickening. It's sickening. It's like a never-ending gore movie. You know, either the Israelis are so incompetent that they are unable to use these weapons properly, or they are killing civilians on purpose. Either way, they should out of Gaza, because they have no business being there in the first place. And if you're backwards enough, you're primitive enough to believe in an eye for an eye, then Israel has already killed several times over the number of Israelis killed by Hamas. How can you even compare the two? The Israelis don't even have civilians. These are settlers, illegal settlers who are armed and live in settlements with military bases nearby. Every single Israeli, men and women, have to go to the Israeli army. And then they turn around and pretend they're civilians. Talk about human shields. The word terrorism doesn't even have any meaning after 9/11. Israel and America just use this crap to kill whoever they want. What does Hamas have to do with the West Bank? Why is Israel killing people in the West Bank? Why have Israel bombed Syria's main airports, Damascus and Aleppo, 5 times in the last 2 weeks? Even the hostages are a bullshit excuse just to bomb Gaza. Were there hostages in 2021, in 2019, in 2014? Who can count anymore? Yesterday, Hamas offered 2 hostages, and Israel said no. Hamas already released several hostages with no strings attached. Israel doesn't even pretend to care anymore. The real hostages are the 2 million Palestinians crammed inside of a concentration camp known as Gaza. No wonder the people there take up arms. No wonder Hamas exists. And by the way, don't come here and dump this Holocaust guilt on Arabs and Palestinians. They had nothing to do with it. Leave that in Europe. Leave that in Germany and France and Austria, where they committed and carried out the Holocaust. You know, being the victim of genocide does not give you the right to go and commit another genocide in Palestine. All right? European countries think that because they massacred millions of Jews, that now they must support Jewish settlers in Palestine, no matter their behavior. This is insanity. And then Israel has the goal to go around silencing people globally. How is Hamas a threat to me? Is Hamas the one meddling in my country, influencing and buying off my politicians, kicking out the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn? Is Hamas the one silencing critics and journalists? Did Hamas demonetize my channel? And then the Israelis want to call themselves a democracy? Is it Hamas that goes around asking Facebook and YouTube to remove videos they don't like because they feel insecure? You can't even open your mouth about Israel before they start hounding you with anti-Semite, anti-Semite. They're not even bloody Semites themselves. Palestinians are Semites, Arabs are Semites, Jews from the Middle East are Semites. Did they tell you that bit? Guess what? European Ashkenazi Jews certainly are not Semites, but the Israelis want to pretend that they are so they can claim the land in Palestine and act like they're natives. Israel is the one building weapons in my country and using them to murder people, not Hamas. What is this folly? What is this insanity? The bullies pretended to be victims, the settlers pretending to be civilians, the oppressors pretending to be the oppressed. Thus was Israel slaughtering Gaza in 2023.
Well, this is the Anne Frank of this generation.
A month ago, Plestia was just a 21-year-old girl living in Gaza. And today, many people are referring to her as the modern-day Anne Frank because she is documenting the destruction of her home and of her people. Because this young woman is being compared to Anne Frank, I think it's really important to remind people that while yes, Anne Frank did die in a concentration camp, she did not die in a gas chamber. She died from disease. And it's important that we mention that because infectious disease is about to be a huge problem in Gaza. There are doctors performing surgery with no anesthesia or antiseptic. You've got people breathing in all of the toxins from these near constant airstrikes. 2 million people live in Gaza and they've had no running water, food, or electricity for at least 2 weeks. Gaza is a concentration camp. These young people are documenting their own genocide, and years from now we'll look back and think, how did we let this happen? As if there wasn't anything we could do to stop it.
Well, this is the Anne Frank.
As of the 23rd of October 2023, the 17th day, 5,317 Palestinians have been confirmed to be killed in Gaza by Israel. 2,190 of them are children. 15,649 people have been injured and 17 journalists have been killed. 38,420 buildings have been completely destroyed. 121,000 buildings have been partially destroyed, displacing 1,350,000 people. They are all now homeless. 80 press headquarters have been damaged or destroyed. 89 schools have been damaged. 309 industrial facilities have been destroyed. 34 mosques have been damaged or destroyed. 3 churches have been damaged or destroyed. 157 health staff have been targeted, 57 of which have been killed, and 100 of which have been injured. 103 health facilities have been targeted, including 19 hospitals, 48 clinics, and 36 ambulances. As of the 23rd of October 2023, the 17th day, 5,317 Palestinians.
Right now, there are 80 premature babies in the NICU room and around 10 other premature babies in the baby-friendly room. According to the Ministry of Health, the hospital is expected to work for the upcoming 48 hours.